What's going on, everybody? We got Justin back here again. So what we're going to do is we're going to recap Miami's 3-0 start, answer some questions from you guys, from supporters on InsideTheU.com, and then we'll talk about this big-time tournament coming up that I'm fascinated by with these teams coming up. I think it's going to be a tough challenge for Miami. But Justin, what's going on?
All is well. Happy to be here again. Thanks for having me. And 3 games in, a lot of good stuff we've seen. So ready to get into it.
Yeah, and we were chatting the other day. We were texting, and I know I wanted to kind of talk to you about the game, but I knew we are going to do it here, so we're going to kind of unload on what we've seen. Just again, Miami gets wins. Lafayette, UNC Greensboro, and Florida A&M. Certainly, Miami's more athletic and the better conference, all that kind of stuff. But Justin, maybe your initial takeaways. Miami outscored those guys 53 points. Just initial talk, and we'll chat about it. We'll kind of talk about what we've seen so far with this team.
Yeah, no huge wins aside from last night against FAMU. No blowouts, I guess I should say, but didn't take anything away. I'm really impressed by this team. I really like what I see, and I'm a harsh critic. So for me to be this excited, my friends will tell you that that's rare. So I really like what I see, and it's not something that we usually see. It's just, some gritty guys that play hard, maybe a little undersized, but it looks good so far.
Justin, what is maybe something in particular that's standing out to you with these games you've seen so far? Again, Jordan Miller leads them in scoring. It's early, 15.7 points a game, 7.7 rebounds. Norchad Omier had a big night against Florida A&M, 12.7, 11 boards. So those are your two leading scorers at this time. And certainly Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong and Ugo Poplar. The starting five has been the same the first 3 games. But initially, Justin, what is it about it? What are you seeing that kind of intrigues you a little bit, or what you like so far?
I just really like the guys playing together. Looks like everyone is moving the ball well. No one really playing selfish. Everyone is playing 100%, giving it their all. And I think that says a lot. Usually, beginning of the season, things might not be clicking. You might see some guys shoot more than they should be, trying to get the numbers up. But I didn't find any of that. And then I will say, I mean, the defense looks great. I'm looking at the scores right now, 54, 65, 61, keeping teams in low scoring. And the two sophomores now, Pop and Benz, I mean, the improvement is drastic. They look great. So that's been exciting, especially coming off the last night's game. Those stand out.
Yeah, so Miami does, they get off to those slow starts the first 2 games, trailing at halftime, and then they pull away. So that's, a little bit something to kind of, certainly you want to get off to better starts, regardless of who you play. So that's something, even a little against Florida A&M, down 12-10 again early on. But they definitely turn it up and get it going. They had some nice dunks in that game. The rotation is something I definitely want to get into. We're definitely going to talk about it in terms of the challenge ahead and that Hall of Fame tip-off tournament coming up. But the rotation, as you mentioned, we talked about the 5 starters are there. Bensley Joseph as a backup, point Harlan Beverly kind of playing that off guard, off guard there, that wing, and then Anthony Walker. They're basically going 8 guys. Walker there at the forward spot, and then the freshmen have played just barely, kind of end of games, but it's eight players at this point. Anything that you've noticed so far, rotation wise? Maybe some things that interesting in terms of how they're playing together. Some combinations. I know you touched on the sophomores.
I think that that starting five, they're playing great together. Yes, a little small, and we'll see how that looks in conference play, but a lot of energy. Like I mentioned before, love Bensley off the bench. And then I really like what Coach L is doing with Harlan Beverly. I mean, that's a tough one to get him back in the rotation. So much time off, so many new guys that transferred in or emerged. So I kind of feel like he's giving him some minutes. If it's working, keep him in. And that paid off in the second game when he hit those 3 threes. That was exciting. And then, game one, put him in, didn't have it that night, took him back out. So I like to see him getting those chances. That's going to help. We need some depth. And Walker, I think he's off to a little bit of a slow start, but another guy that we're really going to need his size and athleticism. So we'll see how it plays out. But right now, like you said, small, short rotation, only going 8 deep. But hey, that's kind of Coach L's style, so it fits the part.
Yeah, definitely. And just a kind of a couple notes on those guys that you mentioned with Harlan Beverly, just kind of being out there watching pregame warmups. He just seems to really enjoy it. He seems to enjoy. I know he enjoyed that 3-pointer game, and that's not been something a strength of his. It's not like this guy's just a shooter and he hit him. I mean, this isn't a guy that's hit three in a game before. He's down around 20% in his career as a 3-point shooter. He's not put up big numbers, so that's great to see. Also, too, a lot of bounce in pregame warmups. Definitely going to show everybody, make sure they could see that or just impressive dunk. That's what he's kind of known for. So it's always great seeing that out of a guy that's been injured or coming back from it, just to see this athleticism there. So that's great. Yeah, Anthony Walker, just kind of a note on him, kind of looking at some advanced analytics stuff on KenPom. Miami's offensive rating individually, all these guys well over 100, 120 individual ratings. And then Walker, just to kind of identify his slow start, is down under the 60s. So everyone else in that rotation is doing well. He's not finding a stroke. I know he thinks and wants to be a 3-point shooter, kind of provide a little bit there. It's just not been there kind of over his career. Just I definitely want to talk about this rotation thing. I know this is what they want to do. I know they want to play small. I am going to be very interested whether it happens this weekend or like you said, conference play actually comes up quick for ACC games in December. I'm curious if this is going to be their best lineup all the way through. And I know that's what we expected, but whether it's different combinations, whether it's moving Omier more to the 4 and bringing in one of the freshmen to play the 5 and Poplar kind of being the odd one out, or move Bensley Joseph into the point guard spot if Nigel Pack isn't creating enough. I just think that I don't think it's for me. I definitely want to get your feedback, but I don't think it's a set in stone as it goes on. And certainly I know coach is going to adjust to that. But I just feel like that there's some possibilities that maybe could kind of pop up as things go on, whether it's starter or just maybe combinations in the lineup. Although I've not seen that necessarily in practice, particularly with Omier slotting down to the 4, Miller to a 3, and bringing in a freshman necessarily. But just your thoughts, maybe, Justin, on some things there.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's working, so probably we'll continue to ride this out until a change is necessary. But I agree with you. I think that some changes will happen. I do feel like specifically Anthony Walker. I mean, he's been off to a slow start a few times before, so this is kind of what we've seen. And then by conference play, he starts to turn it up, so that'll be good. And I think Casey, his size could be important as the season goes on, as he feels more comfortable. So you could see him slide in and get some more minutes as well. But I think it'll depend. They'll make some changes as the season goes on.
Yeah, and again, it might not just be starters. Again, just rotation type stuff. And it's nothing really not to knock like Wooga Poplar when you're looking at it. Feel like it's the 4 guys. I mean, I don't see any of the other 4 coming out of that starting lineup or losing minutes. I just think with Wooga, maybe not necessarily they have some different ways that they could make adjustments if they want to do that. Bring an extra big in. It's going to depend on how things kind of match up. If Omier can match up against the 5s, if Pat can kind of control the 1 spot, he is making that transition there. Whether it's offensively or defensively. I think we both kind of like what we're seeing from Bensley off the bench. With the way he's controlling it, the dunk against Florida A&M was super impressive. I know he's left-handed, but still to slam it home like that, draw the foul, first dunk in his career, that was great to see. And Wooga definitely played well that game. That's great to see. That's what he gets out in the open floor, defend, kind of make shots as they come to him. So that's good. And Wooga right now over 50% shooting, chipping in 9 points a game. I think they would take that all season long. He doesn't have to be a top 4 scorer or anything like that. Just kind of provide, good efficiency. I just think it's one of these things to kind of watch for moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said with Omier, I mean, that's going to be interesting too. I think he's one of these guys that he has a crazy motor, so he's going to find a way to get rebounds and make it happen down low. But being at my first game live last night, I mean, he's definitely undersized at the 5. So a lot of moves will probably be made. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be game by game.
Justin, the track record has been there for Isaiah and Nigel in their careers. Both shooting under 40% so far. The tough games against Florida A&M, certainly a small sample size, but anything to make of that, or just early start, anything to be concerned about, anything you're seeing about how they're on offense?
No, I actually have no concerns. I think they're both going to get right back to their averages. but they both look super confident out there, and I know that the numbers will start to translate. No worries there.
They're fun to watch, Justin. I've touched on it before, just at practices, but again, pregame warmups. I saw Nigel's kind of working on, just kind of joking around with like a one-footed from the 3-point line, and then Isaiah was kind of laughing, and he felt like he wanted to try. I feel like that camaraderie has certainly been building. I think that's been great as they try to speed this up. Their connection. It's just kind of fun to watch, and certainly with what they both can bring to the table. I do want to point out, again, it's early, but Isaiah 35% from three, 31 a year ago. I thought maybe he could tick that up a little bit, so that's good to see. Again, early on, but it's just good to see. And also, he had that big assist performance against Florida A&M. So driving and kicking and finding different guys was good. The lobs to Omier super impressive as well.
Yeah, a lot of lobs last night against Florida A&M. That was fun to watch, and yeah, I mean, I don't no worries. Those guys they're having fun. They're super confident, and the buckets will start to fall. But it's been a great thing to watch. Everybody's getting along well. Teams clicking. They're having fun out there. They're playing hard. And I also wanted to throw in there. I personally thought UNC Greensboro was really good. So they put up a really strong push, and we pushed harder and opened it up and ended up winning the game. But I think that team's going to be good in their conference. So that was a tough one.
Yeah, and going into it, I think Miami was about 9-10 point favorites, which is pretty low considering where Miami was or is the opponent. So that you just don't see usually the margins or the odds be that narrow, the 9-10 point thing. And also UNC Greensboro, again, it's early. Ken Palm has them rated around 100, which is pretty good for that level of a program. So I think, and I know Coach Larinaga felt pretty good about getting that win. I know he spoke highly of them coming into the game and their coaching staff and what they've been able to do. So certainly good. And teams drop games. You obviously don't want to get off to a start that like Louisville dropping, and they look like they're in a mess of a season coming up. But yeah, they've got these 3 wins. They definitely pulled away, so that's good to see. It's going to get tougher. I'm excited to talk about what's coming up next. I got some more things I want to get to, but Justin, let's answer some questions here. We got some good questions here. Just want to shout out everybody, but we'll get right into it. We'll go through it quickly. You can comment. Maybe I'll jump in. Otherwise, we'll just keep it kind of moving. But Hand Warmers 2018, is the game plan this year to shoot more threes, or is it just the way the first few games have gone?
I think I think we're gonna have to shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. Obviously Isaiah and Nigel, well, Nigel specifically, that's one of his strengths. I mean, Jordan has really been shooting great from three, probably taking more shots than last year. And now with Omier, same thing. You got another guy who can shoot a little bit. So I don't know that it's necessarily the go-to, but I think the way the team's been formed, it's going to happen naturally.
Yeah, and just kind of note, again, we keep kind of saying it's early, but 46% of Miami's field goal attempts have been 3-pointers, which is pretty high. It was well over 50 after the first 2 weeks, first 2 games. Last year, they were around 35%. So certainly it's a little bit higher. I think, look, if you're going to play small, that's part of what goes with it. If you're going to play small, you got to be able to hit threes and take threes. And if you're not able to do that, you're going to have a hard time offensively. So I do think it's a part of it. I think also Wooga Poplar kind of getting in there as well. And we're going to get it more into Jordan, but just we're a big component on him playing and shooting as much as possible is good for this team. All right, go to the next one here. It's kind of what we talked about with the starting 5, but first, are the starting 5 truly comfortable and effective playing both zone and man? Your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I mean, it's tough with the sample size we've seen. I don't think last night against Florida A&M they would have had issues either way. I'm curious to see what happens in this tournament. The competition is going to go up a level, and I think we'll get a better idea defensively. But I think you got to be able to play man always, and with our lack of height, got to be able to play a little zone too to pack the paint.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, coach wants to run man, ideally. Also, with Jordan, this was after the second game. The question came in. Jordan was spectacular against, UNC Greensboro. What prevents him from having nights like that each game? But he does back that up. 19 that game, 19 the next. So, he is backing that up. But your thoughts on Jordan again, leading this team in scoring? I definitely want to get your thoughts on him and maybe what you've seen from him so far.
Well, remember my bold prediction was 20 and 10, so he's not so far off from that right now. He's doing a little bit of everything, which I think is great to see. And even a night like last night against Florida A&M, where like the question asked, can he back that up every night? It was a totally different version of it. It was a very quiet performance, but the numbers were still there. So I kind of see him having nights where he is the center of attention, and then nights where just because of his length and his size and the way we're playing, he's just picking up rebounds and points here and there. So he had a lot of putbacks last night. I think it's going to be pretty consistent.
Yeah, shout out Jackson on the questions there. EJS 140. And Justin, I didn't notice this, but let me know if you did. Out of curiosity, Nigel Pack has been grabbing it at his right hamstring often, especially on defense. Is this a minor injury or just something he does? Did you notice it? Have you noticed that at all?
I actually have not noticed that either. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was crazy. As another fan actually said they saw it too. So maybe it's out there. Certainly, I'll be watching for that moving forward. Yeah. But players do all kinds of things, whether it's wiping their hands on their feet or shoot. I mean, who knows what it might be. Frank says, how are the true freshmen progressing? They haven't played much this year. Do they crack the rotation anytime soon? Justin, we talked about a little bit. And look, when I said earlier about some rotation stuff, certainly that means guys have to elevate that are not in the rotation, whether it's freshmen or whoever. But your thoughts on the freshmen, kind of what we've seen. And AJ Casey had a couple nice moments there. He's played a little bit, a few minutes here and there at the end, but progressing. Just how are they doing?
I mean, they minimal minutes, but I think that I think they're progressing from the couple minutes we saw, and I really do think that Casey is going to have to craft the rotation a lot more as we get into conference play. If he can be comfortable out on offense, I know Coach L said he's going to earn his minutes through defense, but we could use that size. So I see him definitely earning more minutes as the season goes on.
Yeah, and he's really just a fascinating. I mean, he's just a really interesting player to watch offensively with what he could do stretching it out. Also had a nice drive and kick the last game. So the moments are there, and certainly I think highly of him. I certainly do in high school, and now it's looking the part. I do want to mention Christian Watson came in, hit a three. That was good to see. Ja'Kai Robinson, a redshirt guy, made his debut. Favorite RA, it's one of those guys I know people are intrigued by. A big man there. And then also, I just want to mention with Danilo Jovanovic, hasn't been dressed any of these three games. I haven't asked coach yet, but he could be obviously maybe on some red shirt watch because if he's just not able to crack the rotation, they've redshirted guys in the past, or because of his size, intriguing, skilled guy at 6'9". Certainly like to have that. Personally, I like it when all the guys can kind of get in there, but certainly with the rotation, just something to watch for moving forward. All right, here we go. This is interesting because it's what we touched on, kind of wrapping it up here with D. Emerson, 21-26, just said who should or will be the fifth starter. Justin, we talked about it. Wooga Poplar is that fifth guy right now, but just who should be and who will be kind of thing.
I mean, going into the season, I would have actually probably leaned towards Walker because of the size, but from what we've seen so far, I mean, Poplar is one of my favorite guys on the team. He is bringing it. He's doing a little bit of everything. His offense is definitely elevated, and I feel like he plays bigger than his size. So I think he's securing that spot right now. We'll see what happens as the competition changes, but I think he's the fifth spot.
And I'm putting you on the spot because I'm reading the questions here. And I don't really have an answer to this in terms of who will be the fifth starter because I could just see it going different ways. I think they're really going to study some lineup combinations and see how things work. And we're going to go right into this tournament because I think we're going to see some things this weekend in terms of how it looks for Miami. And I think it's a great test to moving forward, exam to see what their team actually looks like against some better opponents. I don't know which way they should go. I think both ways. Like I said, you could insert the point guard in if you want to take Poplar out. You could leave it the way it is if Nigel and Amir can handle their responsibilities. And I know that's what coach always likes to have a set rotation. This is just what we do. They want to play small. So if they're slotting Miller and Amir up a level, certainly they're going to play differently. I think so. I know that it's not just about inserting a better guy or a different guy. It's about changing kind of your approach. And that's why it's not as easy. I don't think so. I think Poplar makes sense in terms of that wing, the 6'5" guy, like you said, offensively, defensively, get some rebounds. He's off to a good, efficient offensive performance so far. So we'll see how it goes. Let's get into this, Justin. Great questions. We're kind of going through it here. All right, so let's talk about this. The Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off tournament in Uncasville, Connecticut. 4 teams in it. Miami's going to open up against Providence, and then St. Louis and Maryland. They play the first game there on Saturday at 1:00. I urge people to watch that game first, and then Miami plays at 4:00. Both games will be on ESPN News. The winners will play in the championship game Sunday at 1:00. The losers will play in the consolation game. Okay, all 4 of these teams: St. Louis, Maryland, Providence, all are 3-0. Miami 3-0. St. Louis just behind Miami in the AP top 25. Miami's 29th, St. Louis 30. So I've seen all these teams play. I watched Providence play twice, and I've seen St. Louis and Maryland play once. I'm very intrigued by this. I think Miami's got a huge challenge and to come away victorious in these games. Justin, we'll get into some things that I've noticed, but maybe your thoughts on these types of in-season tournaments and maybe how crucial they can be, and also good for the coaching staff to kind of learn their team even more when you play these kinds of tournaments before ACC play.
Yeah, it's they're really important. These tournaments can go a lot of different ways, and I don't think that it should be built up as anything more than, like you said, some great competition before getting into preseason. I'm sorry, into conference play. The reason I bring that up is I remember our great year. We were in that tournament in Hawaii, and we got our doors blown off by Arizona, who was, I think, number 2 in the country at that point. But I think that if we would have saw them again at the end of the year, we would have given them a nice beating. So it's a good test early, but it doesn't depict the rest of the year. I think the guys will come to play, and I think we'll be pleasantly surprised. I think they're going to step up as the competition steps up, but it's going to be exciting to watch. It's definitely going to be a very different type of game than Florida A&M like we saw last night. So
I think I'm just going to summarize just what these 3 teams are presenting. And I feel like what's going to be so fascinating is all 3 of these teams have good point guards. And so Nigel Pack's going to have to bring it, on both ends of the court. We'll see how that goes. I think he's going to have tough matchups regardless of who Miami plays. I think Norchad Omier is going to have a very difficult time with the size that all 3 of these teams present as well at the 5 spot. And I want to talk about Omier a little bit. The reason why I kind of continue to bring up about how, I know some people are excited about what he's bringing to the table, and I do get that. He's had 4 games in his career against what they call Tier A and Tier B teams, according to Ken Palm, and it's not gone well for Norchad in those games. Just kind of put it in perspective, he's well over 100 to 115 in his career. His offensive rating against those teams, it's down around, it's under 60. He's played against Memphis in his career. He also played against Texas Tech, Illinois, single-digit performances in those games. Essentially, when you go against better opponents, better bigs, he's just not done real well. And I think these teams are going to have bigs that could give him challenges. Foul trouble will be something to pay attention to. But like you said, Justin, it's not a all in, it's not going to necessarily define the season. I just think it's going to, just certainly be a test, and it could go one or two ways. Either you feel good about things moving forward, or it's something to work on. But starting with Providence, again, I watched them play a couple games. They were in a tough one early against Ryder there. They kind of battled through it. They have an interesting team where last year, tournament team played real well, won a bunch of games. They got a new team, a lot of new guys. But what I find interesting, Justin, I want to get your take on this. Providence, again, I'm going to go through the starting lineup. They match up very similar to Miami, in particular with what they do at their forward spot with Jordan Miller. Typically Jordan's got a different matchup, to be able to take advantage of it. But Providence with Jared Bynum at the point guard, Noah Locke, who Miami fans have seen. Miami has seen him at Florida and Louisville at the two guard spot. Devin Carter, Darrell Doral Academy product over there at the 3, which again, you're kind of lining this up. They're very similar. And then Bryce Hopkins, who I liked a lot coming out of high school, goes to Kentucky, doesn't play very much, but he's off to a good start, almost 15 points a game. And he's kind of similar to Jordan in terms of athletic, kind of undersized 4, but kind of do some different things. So I find that matchup is going to be really intriguing with Hopkins and Miller. And then also with Croswell, they're at the 5, and they can bring off Clifton Moore off the bench, both double-digit guys that can rebound with good size at the 5 spot. And I think that's where Providence, they're not a big three-point shooting team right now, but down low, it's going to be really important for Omier to play well. Like I said, the pack challenge at point guard. But my question to you, Justin, is with Jordan Miller, how he does maybe against guys that are similar when he's matched up against guys that are similar athleticism, similar size, because I know he gets that advantage. He knows how to take advantage of it when he's playing against maybe bigger guys. He's an undersized guy.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit of that in the tournament, and I thought he played great. So I think that yes, it's great when he has a, a matchup that he can take advantage of size wise or athletically, but I do think skill wise, I mean, he's just as good as anyone his position. So I see him still doing his thing against these guys. And I just wanted to also bring up the data that you mentioned about Omier. That was really interesting. I'm hopeful that now that he's not the focal point like he was in his previous role, maybe it opens up the floor a little bit for him, and you see those numbers come back to where they should be. So I'm curious now, knowing that. Thanks for sharing, seeing how he performs.
Yeah, so it was 4 points against Illinois, 5 turnovers in that game last season. Plays Texas Tech about a month later, 5 points in that game. So 4 turnovers. Foul trouble. He fouled out against Illinois. We know what they had there. And then Texas State ended up being a tier B team that they played later on. Had more points. Again, the turnovers were way too high. So that's something to pay attention to. You don't usually think about a big guy getting turnovers, but they have kind of piled up for him. Again, it's a challenge that he's got to go against. And I think all 3 of these teams have bigs at the 5 spot that can rebound. They're scoring either in double figures or close to it. Justin, the other thing too, kind of this other matchup, I didn't watch St. Louis and Maryland as much because it depends on if they're going to face them or not. But St. Louis looks very good to me. They played Memphis. I watched that game. That was a lot of fun to watch. Yuri Collins is really impressive, one of the best point guards in the country, led the country last year in assists. This year, he's averaging 14 and 12 assists per game right now. It's really impressive with the way he passes, his vision. Obviously, I really like his velocity. I think it's an underrated part about passing. Just kind of whips the ball around. Jimerson at the 2 spot can knock down threes, 40% in his career, over 40. So, and again, they've got some other guys, but I really like St. Louis team, a veteran team, top 10 in the country in experience. I guess your thoughts on Nigel Pack at the point guard spot, maybe some keys when you're playing against a good point guard like that on both ends of the court, because he's got to be good. He's going to get that matchup for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. I mean, I haven't seen St. Louis play really, but we'll see. And look, if the beauty of it, playing small ball is, we have a bunch of guys that can rotate in and out defensively. So if Pack is not defending well, I mean, you got Wong. I love Bensley's defense off the bench. Maybe he comes in quick, but that'll be interesting to watch. We'll see. I think he'll hold his own, but we'll see.
And I do think St. Louis will beat Maryland. I feel like they're the better team. I think they'll go ahead and handle business. And so Miami, if they beat Providence, I think that's the matchup. I think that's what you'll see. Again, St. Louis, just a really intriguing team, a possible tournament team, the way it looks, the way that they're playing, they got with Pickett also. Perkins, they've got some other guys that can score. I just really like their team, kind of a 1 through 5. It's dictated by their offense. Again, I would urge people to watch St. Louis, watch Collins play, because he's really fun to watch. In the matchup against Memphis, Kendrick Davis is certainly one of the best point guards in the country, and Collins, I think he outplayed him. I know Kendrick kind of dealing with a little bit of an ankle thing. Came on late in the game, but Yuri was impressive throughout. He just was. He can knock down shots, made some free throws, came up in big moments. So it'll be a tough one. I'm just very curious because, again, this is just great for leading into the ACC. And then with Maryland, a little bit of a transition. Kevin Willard taking over at Maryland from Seton Hall defensively. That's where they stand out right now. They've allowed all 3 of their opponents 52 points or less. First time Maryland's done that since the 02-03 season. So Defensively, also kind of what stands out to me again, another good point guard, and Jameer Young. So that'll be something. But Julian's doing well there at the 5 spot. So I think they're impressive with Reese there. So that's impressive. But to me, Maryland, not just defensively, they're kind of built. They've got a couple big guys down low. They got another 6'8" wing. So they've got some muscle to them. And I know Coach talks about how they don't, not just a little bit smaller, but just in general, this tournament. But Coach talks a lot about the speed element of playing small. I want to get your take on maybe how speed can how you can really take advantage of if you're playing bigger opponents and whatnot. And I also just kind of want to mention a couple things defensively that I noticed. Maryland, they'll pick up the ball handler before midcourt, so that's something to watch for. St. Louis kind of runs a 1-3-1 at trap at times, so that'll be something to watch for. And another thing too that Memphis did in that St. Louis matchup was Kendrick actually did his best to pick up Yuri Collins before he got the ball to try to disrupt things. He gets out in the fast break. So that'll be something in particular, I think, with Bensley. If he gets in there, I think you got to pick up Collins full court with the minutes Joseph's in there. But speed, Justin, how can they take advantage of it? And how can you play it to your advantage when you're a little undersized?
I think that it's going to start with the defense, not to sound like a coach, but it's going to start with the defense. If we can get stops, then we can start running out on the fast break, and then we can use our speed to our advantage. So saw a little bit of that, or a lot of that last night against Florida A&M. I mean, a lot of fast breaks, a lot of alley-oops. It wasn't the same type of opponent, but this idea remains the same. Got to get stops, and that's when we can use our speed in transition. But you brought up a great point. I really like Bensley picking up full court. That's when I first caught a liking to him last year in the FAU game. Team was asleep and he came in and he started playing defense, baseline to baseline. And I think we got to see some more of that too. Speed them up, get them to play our game. And in a half court game, I mean, it will be tough with our lack of size. So we gotta be able to move the ball and get out on the fast break.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I like all 3 of the point guards in this turn, all 4, with Miami too, and then the big men. But all 3 of them play different, potential Miami opponents. All 3 of them play different. With Providence, it's going to look a little bit more similar to Miami in terms of the way they start their 5. And then St. Louis is just so dictated on what Collins does at the point guard spot. And then Maryland's got, the point guard, but they're also just kind of this tough defensive team that they're able to go to Reese inside. Scott as well is another impressive player physically. So it'll be interesting. Justin, I'm going to wrap it up, but I appreciate you doing this. I'm fascinated to see how this works out. And then afterwards, they got St. Francis at home, should roll big there. And that tough one against UCF, I know they want to get back on that one. That'll be a tough one on the road. And then they got Rutgers in that Big Ten Challenge. And then that wraps up November. Then they start ACC play against Louisville, who we've certainly seen not play well so far. All right, Justin, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure.